Good morning or good afternoon, depending on whichever coast or part of the United States you're in. Welcome to the third CSA Ideas Lab. We're so glad you can join us here today. My name is Carrie Sedlak, and I'm with the CSA Innovation Network, and I'm super excited to introduce our topic today, virtual engagement, something that has been front in mind and probably really happening on a daily basis for us. How do we interact with our constituents, with those folks that we serve, with one another in the most meaningful, impactful ways. And we're coming at this from the angle of both technical assistance providers for farmers and also as farmers themselves. Without further ado, I am going to introduce Katie Harvey, who's the Workplace Wellness CSA Program Coordinator with Organic Association of Kentucky and Kentucky Farm Share Coalition. They held, like many CSA coalitions or networks, a virtual CSA fair for the very first time this year, and found it to be a very successful event. So Katie, thanks for being here today and for sharing what you've learned from that with attendees today.
Thank you so much, Carrie, and thank you and Liv for hosting this and hosting the CSA Ideas Lab. We're excited to be here and just to kind of share more resources about virtual CSA fairs. And I work with the Organic Association of Kentucky. I help coordinate the Kentucky Farm Share Coalition, which helps connect certified organic farms in Kentucky to workplaces to bring in CSA shares. And we had the privilege of hosting a 2-week event at the end of April with several event partners, and want to kind of share with you a few more details about that today and kind of how things went, how we coordinated that, and what the results were. And so we were actually able to feature 55 CSA farms during this 2-week event, and each day we highlighted 3 to 4 farms in a different geographic area in Kentucky. So we were able to highlight Eastern Kentucky farms one day, Western Kentucky farms, and kind of go from there and really get a wide variety of CSA farms featured in this event. So the real success of this event was all the event partners we were able to work with to promote CSA farmers, as well as kind of connect them to attendees. So we were able to work with Kentucky Proud and Kentucky Department of Agriculture, work with Bluegrass Farm to Table, Edible Kentucky, the Kentucky Horticulture Council, and really have a much wider reach of all the different farmers in their network, as well as consumers and attendees that were kind of in their networks as well. And we shared multiple different CSA tools to help connect partner farms with attendees. So Kentucky Department of Agriculture has their own landing page for CSA, so we were able to promote that through this event. We have our Oak Find a Farm directory where folks can put in a zip code and find farms. And we also, Edible every spring has a CSA directory that we promoted as well. So able to offer multiple tools for folks to connect, which was a big benefit. And really the most important part was just the event promotion. So working with all these different partners, we were really grateful that Kentucky Department of Agriculture and Kentucky Proud was able to chip in advertising dollars and boost this event the 2 weeks prior to launching it on Facebook, and then spend some advertising dollars on Instagram and Facebook promoting their landing page and just promoting CSA, building the buzz, if you will. And then just the sheer number of event posts we had really helped increase the reach of this virtual CSA fair. So we had a post for each partner farm, so 55 posts for just the CSA farms alone, as well as we posted each week leading up to each day leading up to the event 2 weeks prior, as well as just kind of doing a morning post in this Facebook event, kind of letting folks know who we would be featuring. And we just got a lot of traction with partners resharing these posts on their own pages, as well as the CSA farms themselves resharing. And to kind of create some more engagement, because I think that's what we're all looking for, is just kind of how to make these events engaging and fun and really connect consumers and eaters to the farmers and kind of get them to interact with one another. So we were able to host 2 farmer Facebook Live sessions where we streamed those to the event. They were about an hour. We had 8 to 10 farmers on each call, and we used Zoom and streamed it to Facebook Live to kind of get each farm to share an overview of what they had to offer and how folks could connect. We also created Facebook polls in the event to ask attendees questions. One of the most successful ones was just asking them if they were joining a CSA for 2020. And we send out a farmer survey after the event, just to kind of really gauge the impact, how successful this was, how many signups it generated. And the results were great. So we had over 900 folks attend the event. It reached 120,000 people, and 80,000 of that reach was through the social media advertising. And then 86% of the farms reported share signups. So we were able to generate over $116,000 for these CSA farms and in our partners networks, which was great. So in thinking about next season and virtual CSA fairs, we have a few kind of thoughts on benefits and opportunities. So overall, the main success was just getting to work with so many different community organizations, really increasing the reach of the CSA message and getting to promote so many more farms than we would normally with an in-person event. I feel like when you're doing an in-person event, you're inviting the partner farms that serve that area. So it's a much smaller reach. Normally when we host an in-person CSA fair, we might have between 5 and 15 farms. And having 55 farms as a part of this event was just a big benefit. But we, like other kind of CSA coalitions and community organizations, are going to be exploring kind of ways we can make this as interactive as possible. I know several other CSA coalitions use the Zoom platform to kind of host that event on there, as well as taking advantage of the breakout rooms. So we're going to be exploring that for next season, as well as just hosting this event earlier in the sign up season. So we're kind of maximizing the benefit for farms in our network, as well as for attendees looking for CSA. So really excited to kind of see what the future holds. We do intend on doing another virtual CSA fair in the spring.
Thank you, Katie. Those numbers are incredibly impressive. I'm going to turn it over to Liz Corio, who's the VP of Development and Outreach at Glynwood Center for Regional Food and Farming out in New York. Thanks, Liz, for being with us today.
Thanks, Carrie, and it's so great to be with you all. I am with Glynwood, and as you may be able to tell from my title, I am neither a farmer nor a program delivery person, but I do work really closely with both of those teams at our organization. And through that work, just very happy to have Glynwood play a role in facilitating the Hudson Valley CSA Coalition, which is how we come to be a part of the CSA Innovation Networks table. I'm going to talk about virtual fundraising tools and tips. Maybe you're very familiar with fundraising in your work. Maybe you are brand new to it. I'm going to focus on one element of it, which is a virtual fundraising event that we held in September. When it comes to virtual fundraising events and fundraising generally, you know, big surprise, the landscape is really changing. So we typically each year raise funds through a number of different ways. We have direct mail appeals, we have individual donor programs and grants, but we also host a big fundraiser event every year. And of course, this year that wasn't going to happen. So we had the benefit of having a little bit of time to plan, which is my first kind of tip to you all is, you know, be sure if you can have any kind of control over when you're hosting your fundraising efforts, try to make sure you just give yourself enough lead time for planning. And as you're going through that planning process, you want to make sure to ask yourself a few questions. You know, what is the goal of your virtual event? Is it specifically about reaching a certain dollar figure goal? Is it about more community engagement? Is it about reaching new audiences? Because your answers to those questions for your goal is really going to impact the type of event that you choose to host, the format of that event. Also, given that we've all had those virtual events where your video goes out or your live stream goes down, you just make sure that you are in a place, quite literally geographically, where you and your supporters and the people who are going to be participating in your virtual event can access reliable, high-speed internet if you're going to be doing, you know, big video and things like that. Assuming you know what your goal is and that you can do the event, there's actually a few different formats that you can take. I'll talk most about the one that we did, which was 100% remote virtual fundraiser, but there's lots of different models that you can explore. There's everything from, you know, everybody being in their own places and the feeds for the MC and the auctioneer and your guest speakers and the video all being centralized through a central AV. Or you can have everybody in one place, like the production team in one place and just broadcast that out to people through the web. There's also now that some restrictions are lessening, you can do a combo micro gala, where you're gathering your top 25 or top 50 supporters or, potential supporters in one place and doing kind of an in-person thing with a virtual element for people who can't be there. There's a hub and spoke gala, which is where you have sort of a series of parties that are very small, that are connected through live feeds. And then where we think we're all headed next year is some version of old school galas again. But we're really never going to go back to a time when there was no virtual. So whether your auction is online or you're live streaming your main program or your paddle raise for a fundraiser, virtual is a part of our fundraising landscape when it comes to events now. This might sound a little daunting if you're new to fundraising or producing events. And so, the most important thing is to know that you already have everything you need as CSA farmers, because you know better than anybody that it takes a community to really build success and stability for the long run. And that is eternally true when it comes to fundraising as well. Fundraising is all about relationships. So as you're doing your planning and figuring out your format, you want to figure out who are your champions, who are the people who will go to the mat for you and sing your praises kind of far and wide. We did this for the first time really successfully, utilizing a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign for our virtual event. So everybody's kind of familiar at this point with things like GoFundMe or CrowdRise. These are essentially peer-to-peer fundraising efforts happening in a virtual space. We just took that and applied it to our virtual event. And the platform that we used for our virtual event was called GiveButter. I'm happy to share these resources afterwards and talk more about them in breakout. GiveButter made it really, really easy for us to stream content and tell our story, mobilize our peer-to-peer fundraisers, which was a combination of our existing donors and our board members and our staff, to go out and delve deeper into their networks than they ever had before. And also combining it with a live feed as people were making donations, that feed was kind of being updated and people could leave messages. It was really fun. The other thing that was really important is as we were thinking about budget, we were fortunate when COVID hit that we were beginning our new fiscal year. And so we were still finalizing our budget and we had time to plan. So that meant that we were able to say, okay, we know we're not going to do our big virtual event with a catering fees and all of that, but we are going to have costs associated with this event. So it is important to know that virtual is not free. It can be done very cost effectively, but you want to make sure if you're trying to raise money through this virtual event, you have to be sure to budget for your expenses. So there's costs associated with your streaming or donation platform, even if that's just a professional Zoom account. There's credit card processing fees. If you're processing donations or taking payments on more online than ever before, there's going to be increased fees. And then you have, it takes a village, right? So you have a team of people, actually multiple teams of people who are going to be helping you with your content creation. Maybe you need to produce a slick video to help tell your story, or have somebody who is running the board, if you will, or calling the shots that day so that the folks who are telling the story are not also trying to figure out how to get it across in the technical world. So all of this costs some money, but you can do it cost effectively with volunteers. So again, it's all about relationships. Who's in your network? How are they? What skills do they have that they can kind of be leveraged to help you do this for, kind of on a budget, if you will. So even though it's not free, it can kind of be magical. So at Glynwood, as I think I was saying, we had never really been successful in leveraging a peer-to-peer or reaching out beyond the people who were able to come to our farm in the Hudson Valley to raise money and build awareness. But with virtual, we were able to reach a much bigger audience. So about 500 people logged on to our live stream, which was very different. Normally, this event can only host about 250 people. And additionally, by using that peer-to-peer strategy for the fundraising element, we were able to gain about 100 new supporters to our organization who had never known about us. So that was pretty transformative. And then we were also able to make it free. So when we were doing our budgeting, we assumed that there would be no ticket costs associated with it. We would solely be asking for donations. We did have some add-on like merch elements where somebody could purchase an add-on dinner box and things like that just to gain a little more revenue and make it feel live. But the Give Butter platform, I would really, really recommend. I'm happy to answer questions about other things that we looked at but didn't go with in the breakouts. Yeah, and with some forethought and planning and practice, you can really produce a compelling fundraising event, and that the content that you create through it and the process of doing it actually sets you up well to be raising those funds year round, not just related to that event.
Thank you, Liz. I know for sure here at Fair Share, we're going to be implementing some of those strategies that you all use. So thank you so much for sharing the secret sauce, so to speak. Next up in our wonderful line of presenters is Briana Alfaro from NOFA, New York, and she'll be talking with us about virtual farmer field days.
Hi, everyone. I'm Briana Alfaro, the outreach coordinator at NOFA, New York. I do a little bit of everything. It was great to hear some of the tips on fundraising because I work on doing some of the fundraising stuff too. So thanks for sharing, Liz. So I'm just really briefly going to talk about sort of our journey into virtual events, namely our field days, some of the challenges we faced, how we worked through them, and sort of some tips and what worked. All right, so before 2020, we generally would do, at least in the couple of years that I've been with NOFA, we've been doing about 8 or so field days per summer, mainly. Usually anywhere from like 10 participants to some of the ones where we partnered with other organizations, would have greater turnout, maybe up to like 40 or 50, sometimes more depending on what it was. Mostly farmers attended. They generally cost $15 unless we got funding to cover all the costs through grants or sponsorship. They were in person, mostly on farms, usually somewhere in the 3 to 4 hour range. And then this year, when we decided to go to the online format, I think originally we wanted to make sure, or we wanted to attempt to do them live, but then we quickly started to think through the logistics, all of that. And we ended up deciding to do pre-recorded tours. So on this screen here, you can sort of see what the format looked like. So we would have the farmers do a little introduction about their business. And so just to have some sort of like live engagement component, they would sort of give an overview of their business, where they're at, and then we would show a series of videos. So as you can see on the example slide there, we were really trying to like do it in a way to keep people engaged, not show one really long video. So we did approximately 10-minute little chunks. Generally, the first video would be a tour video. The second one would generally be an extension of the tour, and we try to figure out a logical way to break that up. And then the third video was usually something related to a special topic. So in this example, we visited a no-till farm. So we really focused on no-till practices and building no-till beds for that third segment. And then in between each segment, we did Q&A so that as questions came up, we could bring those into the opportunity for discussion. And then we would offer like a final discussion period. We really were committed to keeping these between 60 to 90 minutes. We didn't want them to be too long, which was really difficult going from like a 3 or 4 hour event to 90 minutes, as I'm sure you all know. So we didn't do any sort of like breakout room thing, which really, a lot of these events, one of the main purposes is for networking. So we tried to bring that in little ways, people introducing themselves in the chat. We sort of had this idea at the beginning, if there were like 15 or fewer people, we would go ahead and let people unmute, but we always had more than 15 people. So we just did chat introductions. And then some of the field days, we sort of like plugged in little like special touches. So like on the first one with Main Street Farms, I knew that one of the farmers there was a musician. And so they closed with a pre-recorded video of a song, which everyone loved. And then one of the other ones one of our seed farmers, Petra at Fruition Seeds, she closed with the reading of a really beautiful essay. So it was nice to have just those little things. I always find that farmers are really creative people, writers, artists. So I wanted to bring that into these events a little bit. All of a sudden, we were a production company. Thankfully, we do have a really small staff, but some of us have communications, journalism backgrounds. So we were able to sort of swiftly come up with a plan. I already mentioned we opted to do pre-recorded videos, which I think we did to have a little control over some of the variables like internet connections, et cetera. And also because in the past, we didn't really have the technology to do all these videos. And since we invested in the camera, we now have so many more beautiful photos and videos to use for future projects. So that was really a benefit that came out of this is now we have so much beautiful content to work with for future projects. We also had to think through things like in the past, the farmers, we would show up at the farm, set up our table, do a tour, and then that was kind of the end. Now we're having to communicate and plan things out with the farmer ahead of time. We typically spent about 4 hours at the farm just to get 30 minutes worth of video. And then the farmers then had to be available for the webinar. So it was a little bit more time on behalf of the farmer. So we were very choosy about how many we did, and we ended up deciding just to do 4 because of all the extra time that it took for everybody working on these. We also had a good idea of what we wanted to capture beforehand. We had an offer from someone who had done videography work to do the videos for the whole summer. We knew right away we couldn't afford that. So what we did instead is we paid him to train us on the cameras and the editing. So we paid him for 1 day of film training and 1 day of video editing training. And that included things like training on the mics. We did get wireless mics. And so to afford all that technology, we actually did a special fundraiser. We did I think it was a month-long campaign. And it was all focused on bringing our programming online. And then we quickly switched gears on our grants to include technology into all of our grant writing. So we were able to invest in the technology that we needed. And maybe in the breakout, I'm happy to answer more questions about the technical aspects. We did have one case where one of the farms preferred not to have people there, and they asked if they could film themselves. This happened to be somebody who creates a lot of their own content that we see all the time, Petra at Fruition Seeds, and we knew we could trust that she would get good video. So we went ahead and did that. So, or we went ahead and let her do that, and then we did do a little bit of editing. And I guess just to wrap things up a little bit, we really, I mentioned before that the networking aspect was a challenge, and we tried to really kind of do this on a shoestring. So we don't even have the plan currently where we can do breakout rooms. And so, but we knew that we didn't really have time in the format anyway. So that was something that we're still working on, and we'll change up a little bit for our upcoming conference. Attendance was up with these virtual events. We reached a wider audience. In the past, it was farmers mostly. We saw other TA professionals with the virtual events. We saw a lot of home gardeners, and a lot of farmers sent feedback to us saying we wouldn't have gone otherwise because that's at the other side of the state. So I felt really good about that. We have content for future use. We now have an extended field day season, which some may not like, some may like. We are doing some, they're not exactly field days, but some webinars that are produced with video that we filmed over the summer in November, and we'll be doing some in early spring as well. They did take a lot more staff time per field day, so we made up for that by doing less of them. Questions still out on the community building aspect. I think we're still working on that. So happy to hear any tips. Yep, and I'll just turn it over with that.
Thanks so much, Briana. That was really fascinating to hear the pros and cons, and really appreciated your sharing the creative engagement that you embedded in the different field days. Thanks so much. All right, our final presenter for today is Lauren Rudersdorf with Raleigh's Hillside Farm here in Evansville, Wisconsin. Yeah, sorry, I am currently in Wisconsin, hence the here. Lauren is going to be talking about virtual CSA member events. Welcome, Lauren.
Hi, thanks so much for inviting me to speak today. So yeah, I am Lauren Rudersdorf of Raleigh's Hillside Farm. We run a 400-member CSA south of Madison, about half an hour south of Madison. I run the farm with my husband, Kyle. We just finished our 8th CSA season. We've been doing CSA since the very beginning. And just for the farmers in the room, our CSA is the main element of what we do. So when I talk a little bit on the next slide about building community virtually, CSA is about 80% of our income. So that's why we're able to focus a lot of our energy there. Really quickly also, just so everyone knows, in case you are enjoying the kind of content and education I'm giving you today, I just wanted the farmers in the room also to know that I developed an online course called CSA Quick Start that goes over a lot of the management tools that I use at my farm. And it's a really great program for anyone interested in learning a little bit more. That'll be launching again next spring. I am going to talk about virtual events in just a moment, but because building community virtually is kind of my special sauce as a CSA member, I did just want to take a minute at the beginning to talk about some of the ways that farmers can build community virtually outside of events, because events are awesome. But in general, we have at our farm found diminishing numbers with all on-farm events, digital, virtual events, whatever. We really serve the millennial demographic pretty strongly at our farm. We market a lot on Instagram and most of our members come through there. And we're learning that millennials really want to feel connected, but don't necessarily want to participate in farm events. So if that is something you're experiencing or that's a trend that continues, there are a lot of really, really great ways to connect to your members virtually. I included a quote here from one of my CSA members, and I think it really speaks to how a lot of our members feel. We get this in all of our surveys and just through email communications all the time. People are saying, wow, I've never met you, but I've been a part of your farm for 4 years and I really understand like what you're doing, why you're doing it. I feel connected to the farm, even though I've never set foot out there or we've never met personally. And I think that is a really, again, that's a trend in CSA generally. So it's something to pay a little bit of attention to outside of events. So how do we build community virtually? Really, really quickly. We do weekly newsletters, which I know a lot of other CSA farmers do. But our first section, after we say what's in the box, we have a picture of the box, we say what's in the box, and then we spend about a page, like a Word document, about a page, 5 to 6 paragraphs saying what's going on the farm that week. So we get pretty personal with how things are going, if it's good, if it's bad. And we really use this as a communication tool to connect with our members and to educate them about what's going on. And I think that is one of the main reasons that people feel so connected to us, because they really get a hearty update from us. Social media posts and stories. This is something I also know that I do really, really well, that other farmers are dipping their toes into, and some of them are doing really well. But using social media posts and stories to connect with your CSA members, they're looking there. They want to see what's going on the day-to-day operation. So they're looking there and they love when you're telling them what's happening. We also do a private Facebook group. I'll talk about this a little bit more because we utilize that for our virtual events. We do a core group, which this year we met virtually. We do 2 meetings, one in the spring and one in the fall. And yeah, we met virtually because of COVID and it was incredibly successful. We had like 10 times the turnout we've ever had before. It's usually about 5 people, like 30 people came this last time. So that's something we will definitely continue. We love engaging with our most enthusiastic CSA members and learning from them. So again, kind of an event, kind of not, but something to think about. I also have a blog, and that's kind of an extension of my weekly newsletter, keeping people up to date on what's happening at the farm really throughout the year outside of the CSA season. So virtual CSA events, what I was actually asked to talk about today. What did we do at our farm? We did 3 things. We wanted to do 1 million, but I'm really glad we settled on only 3. We for one moment thought we were going to do monthly events, and I'm glad we decided not to do that. That could have been very overwhelming. But so we did Facebook Lives with special guests through our private Facebook group. I'll talk about all of these a little bit more in a moment. We did virtual farm tours. I'll tell you how that went. And then we did a CSA Open House, which was technically in person, but this is just for COVID, kind of COVID safe idea. We did a CSA in-person open house at our farm with a timed entry. So Facebook Lives, we ran these through our private CSA Facebook group. So we do have a private Facebook group for our CSA members. We create a new one every year. So it's only current year CSA members. It's a really, really fun way to engage with our CSA members on a regular basis. We put a question in there once or twice a week just to kind of see what people are cooking, see how things are going for them. We loved using this group to do lives in the spring. We have a lot of on-farm partnerships with add-on partners, and we did kind of a live Q&A with our add-on chair partners so that our members could not only meet us, but they could also meet the vendors we work with and ask them questions. We ran this through an app called SteamYard, which is free and allows you to invite guests in, and it just, when you schedule it through SteamYard, it'll announce the day, the time, and the focus. As soon as you schedule it, it'll push that out into your Facebook group so people will know and they can follow along and save the date and come in. And when you start the live, it'll show up, everyone in your group will get a notification that you're going live so they can opt in if they want. It also records the video. And so then it'll just stay there in that Facebook group for the people who couldn't attend live. They'll be able to watch it later. This was really effective. We only had about 5 people showing up live, but a lot of people watched it throughout the weeks after. So we had like about 50 members viewing all of these, which was really, really great for us. Again, we have a 400 member CSA, so that kind of impact is really strong for us. And the 5 people who showed up live each time tended to be people really interested in that add-on chair who wanted to ask questions in the moment. So that's one thing we did. And you could do this with add-on chair partners like we did, or just in just you speaking to your members through there. It's really wonderful because you're not broadcasting live to all of your Facebook audience. It is just to your CSA members. Virtual farm tours. So my husband and I hosted 2 virtual farm tours. We ran these through Zoom. We scheduled them at the beginning of the season, just like a regular farm event, so that all those dates were on our members' calendars from well before the season actually began. They knew exactly when these tours were going to be so that they could get excited for them. We also collected RSVPs through a virtual Facebook event. So you can do Facebook events now that are virtual with a link to sign up. So we could put the Zoom link right in there. We ran it through Zoom so folks could engage and ask questions. This worked really, really well. We wanted to do it live because we really wanted that engagement piece. We wanted people, it was recorded also, but we wanted people to be able to ask us questions. So that's why we ran it through Zoom. We had about 50 guests the first time. We weren't sure how many of our members would show up. So we did pay for the premium Zoom level just in case all of our members ended up showing up. We wanted to make sure there was room for them. Zoom does have a monthly fee if you're going above 100 guests or longer than 40 minutes, but you can just sign up for that for the month of your event and then you can cancel. There's no subscription needed. So that's what we did. We just upgraded for the 2 months that we had events. We kept the tech super minimal. No microphones, shaky self-held video. And I really encourage farmers to just go for it. If you're trying to connect with your members, don't get too overwhelmed by the tech. Your members are not expecting that from you. And then, like I said before, we recorded the Zoom so that our tour and all of the Q&As could be saved, and we put them all into YouTube for members to look at afterwards. Did have diminishing returns here. Our first tour had about 50 people, and the second one only had like 5. So I think doing this once a year is a great idea, but I don't know if you need to do it multiple times. Most people just want to see the farm once, and once they do, they're happy. So that's kind of how that went for us. We were really, really happy with it and the level of engagement we saw. And then lastly, really, really briefly, we also did a CSA Open House, which was technically not virtual, but again, might be a good idea to explore. A couple of my friends who farm in the area did this as well. We set up timed tours. I used Google Forms with the Choice Eliminator 2 add-on. I can talk about that more in the breakout rooms. So I've also heard you can use Eventbrite, but that allowed one person to sign up for a specific time to visit the farm. We said one family or one household, per time slot. We promoted it just like we did our other event. was fully masked, and then tours ran every 15 minutes. My husband and I alternated, so people actually had half an hour to tour the farm. But we just wanted to have that option available for the folks who really, there's always about 10% of the CSA members each year who it's really, really important to see the farm. So we wanted to find a way to make that happen safely. And then I also just wanted to include some other things we thought about doing. We can talk about these more in the breakout room, but here's some great suggestions for virtual events for farmers who are just trying to get inspired. These are all things we thought about. Again, we had considered doing a virtual event monthly, trivia night, cooking class, kind of mixing it up outside of the farm tour, but didn't plan it, didn't start thinking about planning till June, so ran out of steam. But there are all things we're exploring for the future to really build engagement and get people excited and connected. And that is all. I know we have to get into the breakout room, so sorry I talked pretty quickly, but I am super happy to talk about any of the things I presented on or some of those ideas that I shared. Also, feel free to reach out to me at any time with questions if you have them. I've got my email address and my social media handles here. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Lauren. That was great. Thanks for the broad and detailed both overview of just digital member engagement overall. That was great. Thanks so much for being here today. I for sure learned a lot myself. I hope you did as well. And I hope we take a lot of these lessons from all of these different virtual events and bring them into 2021 and have, you know, the best virtual year yet. And it's great to be in this work with one another. And I wanted to put a big plug in for our next CSA Ideas Lab session, a really exciting topic coming up here, Farmer to Farmer e-commerce exchange. It'll be on November 17th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be focusing on this pretty comprehensive report that the Innovation Network has just put together on the top ranked e-commerce platforms used by direct market producers. So super exciting session coming up. And thanks all for being here. We really appreciate your sharing your knowledge. And everybody, I hope you have a great afternoon.